Good afternoon. We're starting our session. We're lagging a little bit behind the schedule, but we will try to be on time. My name is Igor Vivavarev. I'm going to work here as the moderator.
My name is Igor Vivavarev. I will moderate this session. We'll start a bit later.
English speaking, so you better get synchro translation to be online with us. И сегодня мы говорим про голосовые технологии.
Today we will be speaking about voice technologies in the sphere of medicine, and I think that this is a very interesting subject to discuss. And today we are joined by very incredible speakers, Vladimir Makarov, representing here the Moscow government. Yes. So here, John Brownstein, Director for Innovations from Boston Children's Hospital. Alexei Rybakov, Head for Department for Medical Decisions at the TMT Center. I skipped one person, Cohen Kass, futurologist and professor and lecturer in oncology, and Mr. Dersal, working with artificial intelligence. It's worth mentioning that within our panel discussions, we have people with different backgrounds. We have people working in the sphere of technologies implementations, those working in hospitals directly. We have so-called customers who would like to look at these technologies from the point of view of implementation. And we also have a very interesting guest, Cohen Kass, a futurologist, and he will provide us with a broader overview for those technologies. And we would like by a smart introductory part. So could you just say a few words about yourself, just to introduce yourself, say a few words about your background and technologies that you are working on and what is interesting for you. So let's start one after another. Vladimir, please, over to you. Good afternoon, dear friends. I do believe that it's really interesting. I am a Deputy Director for Information Technologies at the Department of Government of Moscow, and I have been working in the sphere of implementation of technologies in medicine, and I've been doing that for quite a few years, working on different establishments, medical establishments, educational ones. So I'm here, even though that we all had some discussions with arguments with Igor, still I'm here to present customers, our consumers, because me and my team were supposed to explain to them what we can offer them, and tell them a bit more about our technology. John, please.
Background and what is driving you?
Hello, everyone. Going back in my ear. My name is John Brownstein. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Boston Children's Hospital. I'm also a professor at Harvard University, where I work on the intersection of technology and healthcare. So the idea has always been that we have incredible technological advancements, and they've really never been utilized in the best possible way to support patient care, to support the practice of medicine. And so my work at the hospital has been to think about how to take leading edge technologies, and we'll talk about voice technology today, and how to bring those to support care, to improve the practice, and as well as reduce burnout, which is experienced by many of our clinical staff through the amount of work they have in clinical documentation. So I'll look forward to telling you more about that.
Okay, great, thank you. Синхроперевод есть? Кто-нибудь пользуется? Нормально, да? Окей, отлично. So, tell a couple of words about you and what is driving you. And actually, medical futurist is a wonderful, I would say, position.
I have to balance that. No one can predict the future, really not. But you can create a future, I believe. But you can create a future. And my big dream, and the dream of the team, is to go back to very old China, 2,000 years old, where the doctor was paid as long as people in the village remained healthy. And that is a complete change from currently reactive sick care to predictive and preventive healthcare. And what we do, we try to build delightful healthcare, where every friction out of the healthcare system is removed, the biggest friction, getting sick in the first place. And that's what I would talk about a little bit.
Okay, great. Alexei?
Добрый день, Алексей Рыбаков. Я
My name is Alexei Rybakov, and here to represent the Center for Voice Technologies. I would say that we actually work with everything related to voice processing, with different algorithm, recognition patterns, and I think that any company that has this kind of voice recognition patterns thinks how it can be applied in the medical sphere. And my department works specifically in this domain. Why am I doing that? Well, you know, 2 years ago I found my very old medical history, and I couldn't understand a single line because it was not readable at all. I understand that computers are now being very intensely used, and doctors use computers, and still we have, still some challenges, and we want to make the life of our relatives, of our beloved one, and specialists more convenient and easier. Arkady, please, over to you. Good afternoon. We work in the Center for Artificial Intelligence at the MTS, and we work with different spheres of applications of artificial intelligence. And we are one of the biggest telecommunication operators in the world. We work with telemedicine. This is one of our major focuses. And our main task right now, or goals, is to work with voice patterns and voice technologies, but I will extrapolate a little bit more on that later. Well, actually, I am a psychologist by education, and but now I'm working in a little bit different field of expertise. But we have to understand that right now a lot of different spheres, they are interlinked and connect, and I'm particularly interested in artificial intelligence, how it can be applied in our daily life and our professional life. And I would like to make a particular focus on medicine. And I think that voice and voice technologies could really improve this domain with the help of nanotechnologies. Well, as you can see, we have quite an interesting composition of panel discussion. In a few words about me, I'm a physicist by profession, and also I'm an entrepreneur. I have a number of companies which were founded by me. Some of them are directly engaged in the medical sector. I have been working a lot with artificial intelligence. I also like to organize different conferences, including Open Talk dedicated to artificial intelligence. And also we also create and issue a special magazine called Artificial Intelligence with different reports regarding this phenomena. And thus, for example, we have just issued a third edition of this magazine. It is not has not been yet printed, but it is already available in electronic form. And sometimes that we are going to discuss today still is very well reflected in some of our works, and also in this particular edition and two previous editions as well. So if you are interested, I can give you a QR code to download a copy of it after our session. I should say that there you can find a very interesting overview of this artificial intelligence. Today we have two companies, CRT and MTS. They are two of top 15 companies in Russia working with voice technologies, and it's really nice. It's really cool. I would like to say that CRT company is one of the leaders. They are very much focused on voice technologies. That is why Alexei, I think, later on will tell us a little bit more about those cool things that they are creating and things that they are implementing in Moscow together with Vladimir Makarov, and they are making a great contribution. As for MTS company, this is a high-profile company, but they also now working with voice technologies. They are no longer just a telecommunication company, but they work and they are presented in different domains. We have to understand that voice technology is an integral part of our life, and one of the articles that you can find, for example, in this magazine or journal is dedicated to one of the nowadays trends, which tells us that many people people believe that very soon we will be all surrounded by voice assistants, and we will be communicating with a lot of different gadgets. But Corin will also tell us a little bit more about that later, because he has his own take on that. But me as an analyst, and me while studying this industry, I should say that we can see voice interfaces everywhere. We start interacting with the machines, with our house, but we're not quite there. It is just the beginning. I think that very soon we will start to talk to very unexpected things, and many companies stay focused on that. We find it very important to provide our people with the most comfortable interface. And Nikolai was absolutely right in saying that it's very important also to provide some opportunities for doctors as well. And Alexei said that a few words about that. So I was really surprised when I found out that, for example, at the Boston's hospital, there were already some technologies implemented for children. It's not just about reading about the technologies. No, really, they're working there with real technologies based on Amazon Alexa that helps doctors to tackle day-to-day routine tasks. I think that we need to ask John about that.
The technology what they're using in a Boston Children's Hospital based on this voice assistant. Actually, it's amazing. It's amazing that you're already doing this. So we're excited to know more about this.
Wonderful. Yeah. I don't know if you can put up the slides. Okay. So I'm very happy to tell you a little bit about our experience in the idea that this whole drive in the consumer space around voice technology and what it can do to bring efficiency in the practice of medicine. This is a photo of a physician maybe very delighted with the use of their mobile phone and their computer, but the reality is our physicians are burdened by so much paperwork and documentation. It is incredibly challenging for them to get through their day job. It's a term we call formitis, so this idea that physicians have to fill out over 20,000 forms every year. They have administrative assistants, over 4 per provider, that are helping them fill out these forms. And we also know that many of the mistakes that are made are through the administrative errors related to that filling out of information. And so our view has been that there's an opportunity to bring more technology, but that more technology is actually creating more complexity and that it endangers patient lives. And so our view has been, why not focus on technology that exists in the background that is augmenting the physician rather than bringing them down with the weight of documentation. And so we've been very excited by the massive wave of new user interfaces, the idea that there are new technologies like with voice and chatbots and virtual assistants that can change the way that we interact with technology. It means that we're much more natural in our interactions with these tools. The reality is that voice technologies and assistants are now well adopted in the consumer population. In the US, and I'm sure very similar here, we have a wide range of adoption of these technologies. Well over half of every US household now has a Google Home or an Alexa already in their house. We can try to understand why these companies like Google and Amazon are doing this. Of course, they're not altruistic. They're looking to actually get deeper into your home to allow you to discover more content so you can do more searches or you can buy stuff. They recognize that there's all these components to voice that are very different, right? So it's more intimate. It is much more easy to get access to what people are thinking and saying. So of course, there are a lot of reasons why these companies are focused, and they're obviously trying to get a deeper insight into that individual. We can debate, and I'm sure we can debate here about whether that is valuable or not as a technology, but the reality is these technologies exist today, and our view is why not begin to leverage them in the healthcare setting. The reality also is that these technologies are getting massive adoption because they're incredibly inexpensive, right? Being able to purchase one of these devices, they're basically giving them out for free, and so they're already well adopted. So our view has always been that if voice is now becoming a modality, we should be thinking about that in healthcare. For the last 20 years or more, we've been thinking about how to bring technologies to support our patients. 20 years ago, we were developing patient portals, so a patient had to log in to a website and get access to their health care. Maybe 10 years ago, we just said, okay, well, maybe if we made a mobile app and put it on your cell phone, maybe people will access that information. It turns out it's just the same thing as being on a website. It doesn't really change engagement. Now we're in the era of voice assistants and chatbots. It changes our interaction with these tools. You don't have to be well educated in technology to be able to use them. And in fact, of course, in the pediatric population, kids can use these things immediately without any education in technology. And so we started down this path working with Amazon, actually. We've been working with Amazon for several years with this idea that Alexa itself could be implemented in a variety of settings. Imagine you put a device, Alexa, in the home, but that had all the information about the world's medical knowledge, or had all this information about you. You could easily access it. Or what about in an inpatient setting where someone could access and control features of the room just using their voice? Or even in the outpatient setting where there's an opportunity to improve the engagement between the provider and the patient. And I'll tell you about a few of these examples. In fact, there is a wide startup landscape out there right now, and I'm sure similarly here in the Russian ecosystem, very similarly, lots of startups focus on many different applications of voice technology in healthcare. Our first application was incredibly simple. It was this idea that in our intensive care unit, it's a very fast-paced environment, but there was a need for access to quick information very quickly. So who's staffing a particular bed? What is my dosing instructions for a particular medication? What is the protocol around taking care of this patient? All of these things can be developed as instruction manuals, so in fact, you could just quickly ask Alexa and get this information immediately. So essentially, Alexa becomes a decision support tool which integrates all sorts of information across our organization. You can then take it one step further. We're trying to push the quality of care delivery in our institution. Imagine you can use Alexa to do things like checklists or verify that the donor of a particular organ is getting the right organ, right? So we are pushing quality of care and repeatability. You can use voice as a mechanism to essentially guide people to making sure that they're providing the right kind of care. What's really important and what we've done uniquely is actually connect these voice. So we created the first connection between Amazon Alexa consumer technology and the electronic medical record. And this is now happening in real time where a physician says something about a patient, that information can go directly into the electronic medical record. The next step, of course, is thinking about how to use these technologies to improve the physician-patient experience. I'm sure many of us have been to see a provider, and the doctor has their back to the patient while they're typing on the computer while the patient is speaking. Imagine you take away that typing, and the patient and the doctor are just having a conversation, and that conversation gets processed by natural language processing and machine learning, and all of a sudden all that information ends up into the electronic medical record. Another exciting advancement is this technology can exist right on the mobile phone. This is a technology we're helping build where actually the patient comes to their doctor, they have a recording of that conversation they just put in front of the doctor. All of a sudden that conversation gets structured with machine learning and natural language processing and codes the conversation, and they can share that back with the provider. So it means that the power of the data exists with the patient, not the physician. We're also thinking about how do you improve the experience of a patient in the hospital itself. If you think about it, we use a button to say, call the nurse, and then the nurse comes and they ask, what's wrong? Imagine you can just say what you need. The NLP takes, structured text takes that request and then triages it to the right person. So, a food request is different than a pain request. So this is all actually happening today now in the institution. We've then extended this to more consumer space. Of course, you can imagine if you can arm Alexa with information about guidelines, then you can help our patients before they ever come to the hospital. We give them information about what to do in the case of a fever, or what about for patients with asthma, what kind of protocols do we suggest on how to take care of yourself. We even give things like guidance about vaccines and help counter misinformation about the flu shot. So all this is well and good, but imagine then Alexa can actually take clinical data. And so we worked with Amazon to create HIPAA compliance, which essentially means that we have an ability to transmit actual clinical information to the point where now the Amazon tool can actually collect information about a patient. So their appetite levels, pain scores, activity, and this is all related to the ability to track that patient over time, and that information goes directly to their care team. So lots of opportunities, and we're just starting to scratch the surface. One area that I hope that we'll scratch on today is the data that exists outside of what people actually say, what we call voice biomarkers. And so it's this idea that the components, and I'm trying to advance here, of your voice, like your rhythm, your rate, there we go, your tone. Oops, go back. How do I go back here? Can I go back? Can you go? Okay. The rate, rhythm, tone, volume, all the components of your voice actually can tell something about your health status. So it's not just the words that you use. And so imagine now these devices themselves have this ability to actually detect disease, whether it's cardiovascular disease, psychological disorders, infectious disease. There's a whole range of diseases that could be detected just through your slight changes in your voice. And so, from our perspective, there's huge opportunities in sort of pushing the envelope in thinking about this. Hopefully, through this discussion, we'll talk about some of the challenges, the ability for these devices actually to understand us, and whether they in fact generate more frustration than value for patients, and that's going to be a real problem, and these technologies are not quite there yet. But I'll leave it there and look forward to a discussion. Thank you very much.
John, thank you very much for exciting presentation. And just a couple of words to you. Do you guys do this with your inner team in a hospital, or you work with some external companies and purchase some services from them?
So we have a large team at the hospital, about 100 people on the innovation team.
100 people,
and
wow.
It's software developers, full suite engineers, and so we can build technologies, but we partner a lot. We don't want to build things that exist in the startup ecosystem, so we partner with many startups, help them customize their tools, obviously work with larger companies like Amazon and Google as well, and so it's a partnership. But in order to do this properly, you need staff on the hospital side to help implement these things.
Right. And the second question will be, actually, we have a lot of talks in Russia here about privacy, about this patient data. And do you have any concerns when you use Amazon Alexa, when you give some patient data actually to the Amazon Alexa, and it is proceeding somewhere, and we have some scandals last day. So how do you deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, we work very closely with Amazon security, privacy team. All our work goes through very deep compliance. I mean, the reality is so much of healthcare is being done with AWS already. Alexa lives on AWS. So Amazon has a very rich history of understanding these complexities, but there's also the perception issue too. We work with a lot of patients to get their sort of feedback, and the vast majority of patients are very excited about this technology. They already have them in the home. Why not utilize them for their care? We go through a lot of work to consent patients around understanding whether they'd be willing to use their data. Our consent rates are incredibly high, and I think generally there's a hunger on the part of patients to be able to have access to these technologies. More concerned around
Yeah, on that topic, we experience it as well. We are part of the Parkinson's Disease Initiative. And the Parkinson's Disease Initiative is the following. A Parkinson patient you recognize like this, but just like I mentioned, 2 years before you see me shake, I start to pronounce my vocals differently. And it's amazing to see that patients who have suffered from Parkinson's in families are absolutely okay that you start to record voices to avoid that you miss Parkinson's in time. And that's a tremendous opportunity to start bringing new types of drugs which can still influence the disease in time to the patient. And even pharma is willing to follow that route. And that's pretty remarkable, because pharma is always, super compliant and hard to deal with private data. In our feeling and our experience, this goes really well.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, John. It was a fantastic talk, and I think you're absolutely right that the happiness of the patients actually matters. So if they're happy with this technology and it's doing right, so everybody's happy. Вот замечательно.
So that is wonderful that in Boston they already use such technologies. But as far as I understand, here in Moscow we already have kind of pilot applications, but the same things are already present in Moscow, and we can hear it from people who are immediately involved with that. Alexey Rybakov, could you please tell us what are you doing? Good afternoon once again. Our session is called Today and Tomorrow in Speech Technologies in Medicine, and I'm going to speak about this day, about today, what kind of technologies are quite efficiently applied in the world, which proved to be efficient in Russia and in the world, and not very well spread in Russia. And it's not by chance that Moscow is at the front line, not only because the fact that in Moscow we have strong political will and course for innovation, with the example of new technologies application, but also in Moscow we have quite considerable infrastructure which makes it possible to perform and scale IT experiments almost of any kind of complexity. First of all, I'm speaking about Unified Center of Data Processing, where all the city polyclinics are connected to and information systems. In my report I would like to speak what kind of things we've done with the Department of Healthcare, Government of Moscow, Department of IT, what kind of services we implemented, what kind of complications we faced. It's hardly probable that I will tell you some principal new scenario of application, because as I have already said, it is already used in the world. But still, when we're speaking about speech identification in Russian, it has its own tint, its own character, and it should be interesting. Can I get the clicker? Well, currently in Moscow we have two large-scale projects. The first one for the voice filling of medical documents, which gives doctors an opportunity not to put down but to speak the medical conclusions. And they use headsets or use a microphone, they dictate, and everything what is said by the doctor is identified and gets into the medical history. Of course, we are dealing not only with speech recognition, but we also fill in medical documents for the figures, specific terminology, abbreviations, and even if they are in Latin. Now we are concentrated in doctors of X-ray diagnosis, and it's not by chance, because X-ray doctors have the most large-scale and not very well-structured research and for us the main thing is these doctors work without patients, so they make descriptions without a patient, and they can completely get concentrated on dictating the documents. So currently in Moscow we have started 7 city polyclinics with all the affiliated structures, and any doctor of X-ray diagnosis can use this technology. Now we are going to scale this solution to other objects. But it's not that good. There are some peculiarities, and these peculiarities consist in the fact that looking towards the West, we could believe that it's enough to take speech recognition technology, to test it, to help it to learn, give this equipment to doctors, and all the doctors will be happy and start dictating. But actually it proved to be more complicated, because every time we speak about this technology, it is so intuitively simple and clear that doctors say, cool, okay, now I will only dictate. What a good technology it is. He starts dictating and he said, guys, we need to pronounce all the punctuation marks, dot, comma, and also there are mistakes of recognition that should be corrected, even though the quality of recognition now is like 93%. And very soon doctors have some defeated expectancies, and they are disappointed because of course they have to pronounce all the punctuation and marks, and they have to help recognition problems, and it's done all over the world. This scenario of work is quite clear, but the question is different, that during dictation people have to learn to dictate properly in the same way how we learned to write. We do not throw away the keyboard only because we made a mistake and made a misprint or doctor started writing in another language, we still work with this, and we have to invest time towards new technologies. I believe that these defeated expectancies, and it's truly a miracle that we take a headset and everything is recognized. And the thing is that the task of a doctor in the West and in Russia is a little bit different. In the West, the doctors have always dictated, sometimes to the voice recorder, but still these records went through stenography centers. In Russia, the doctors have always created medical documents themselves, and switching from dictation into voice recorder into voice recognition is easier than from personal writing to voice recognition. And we discussed this problem, and one of the doctors said a very correct thing, that creation of a protocol with the help of a voice and creation of a protocol with the help of a keyboard, for these two processes we have different parts of brain implemented, and we cannot believe that this transition can be so easy. But it does not remove from us as developers responsibility that we have to increase the recognition rate every day, that we should improve the system operation every day. We perfectly well understand that we're dealing with the Russian language, where it's very hard to recognize, for instance, phrases in the upper share. We do not pronounce the first part of this phrase in, and for our speech recognition system, it is crucial. And as to the endings, if we say image and images in English, we can say there can be different declinations. I don't know how translators are dealing with this, but however, we actually attach additional linguistic modules, and we work with the improvement of quality of recognition. So the work that is done in Moscow, the work is in methodological areas. So jointly with the Department of Healthcare, we develop methodological recommendations on efficient methods of dictation, and we arrange classes where we invite doctors. We show them how the system works, and namely this gives the best practice experience. And the second service that we implement in Moscow, it's mostly for patients. That is the service of outcome calling. We call patients one day before the appointment. We remind about the appointment, and we give an opportunity to control this appointment, to cancel it or to change the time of appointment. On the one hand, we decrease the number of people who just forgot about the appointment, and then on the other hand, if a person canceled the appointment, we still show the schedule of the doctor, and this appointment can be used for another patient. Why speech technologies are involved here when we have so many channels of distant communications as web, mobile applications, and messengers, and so on and so forth. But actually it proved to be more complicated, and I will speak about statistics later on. The thing is that the voice channel is the most natural channel for a human being, because speech skills are the first skills that a person gets in life. And if like 5 years ago, with the hypes of messengers, almost all analytics dealing with contact centers said that the share of voice traffic in call centers is going to fall down. Now we see a different tendency, that the voice traffic is developing, and it is going to prevail in comparison to other channels of service for a long time. Also, we started this project in 7 different polyclinics, and speaking about its efficiency, there are 2 interesting figures. Having combined the voice channel with other reminders, we have increased the patients who inform about cancellation of appointment in 3 times. So 3 times people more inform that they're not going to the appointment and not just missing the appointment. Moreover, there is only a very interesting correlation. So the informed patient, the informed by voice patient, got the number of information about cancellation of appointment much better, and they inform us via mobile application as well. So now people are more conscious, and when we call them, and even if at that point they agree to come to appointment, they will inform us via another channel. And the second figure is it's almost 2 times less people who didn't come after confirmation. So this statistics, this cooperation and this penetration of channels into each other is very interesting. Here we got quite a complicated way. Initially we've made kind of a Werther robot who solved only the task we gave. So tomorrow you should go for appointment, please tell us whether you come or not. So he would not answer any other questions. There wouldn't be a dialogue, and we never even reached this figure. It made us think, and the client, as Moscow government made us think about it, and we have created a person, a virtual consultant, who has her own character, some manner of communication, can answer different questions, and it actually improved the conscience of people and understanding of people. As I'm through with my report, just listen to one of the phonograms, how this robot is talking right now. Why we do not have a sound? Please switch on some file. I would like to remind you, you have an appointment. Thank you very much. I forgot about this. Well, so we are waiting for you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. I wish you good luck and a confirmation of appointment with the information regarding the address. Good afternoon. You have appointment tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Will you come for the appointment? Should I tell you the address? Well, could you please? Unfortunately, I cannot hear the sound properly. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can switch it off. Well, that's all I wanted to say, and these services are available in Moscow now. Alexei, thank you very much. It's really great to see that we already have something working, and I believe that this voice assistant does not hide that it is a robot. It doesn't say it directly. There was a discussion whether we should tell it or not, but with the voice we can say that we can differentiate that these are robots. Here is a huge discussion whether we should specify, and we do not have a ready-made answer for that. For some services it is required, but now we do not make an accent on this being a person. There was a funny discussion at one of the conferences on artificial intelligence, and some of the developers said that people are very pleased to talk to a robot. Initially I said that a person will be scared to talk to a robot. What is your experience? Do people talk to a robot or try to put down the receiver as fast as possible? Well, actually, a person is always more pleased to talk to a person. It's an illusion that people like to talk to machines, and we made a research when we were implementing in the bank, experimenting with the bank sphere, and it shows that 20% of people will never communicate with a robot. As soon as they hear robots, he will try to reach an operator, a human operator. I think it's an answer to your question. And you know, there was such a question when people were asked who would sit into the who would go into the plane which is controlled by a robot, by autopilot, and 95% didn't want to fly with this, even though autopilot system is used right now and pilot is sitting there doing nothing. And in this respect, it's quite typical of us to make mistakes sometimes in what we would do and what we are really doing. We sometimes do not know it actually. And I would like to give the floor to Vladimir Makarov, and I would like to make a comment. I live in Moscow, and well, before this session I was thinking, as many people in Moscow, we just complain about our city, we do not like this, we do not like that, and if we think Moscow is a very cool city, a very advanced city in the world. I visited lots of cities in the world, and the level of digital services that is provided in Moscow is really amazing, starting from my document, parking, payment via mobile application. I never saw that anywhere else, and in this respect, regardless of our complaints, I understand Vladimir and the people who work in departments, they have to balance between different fires, but still do cool things. But parking is quite clear, it's about different things. And as to healthcare, I would like to hear from the people what was to see to prospects, what is going to happen.
Good afternoon once again. So I would like to start by saying that all these technologies that are now being discussed today, not just in this room, but in others. We talk about artificial intelligence, big data. It's not something about future. No, it's a reality we are living in right now. Very often I argue with my wife. I have kids, just like many of you, and you know that they spend a lot of time with their gadgets, and we keep complaining that they spend too much time with these gadgets. But not long ago, I was absolutely mesmerized by a picture. I saw little kids playing bowling with his laptop, and the point is that from our point of view, this is like virtual reality, and it's something incorrect. There is something bad about that, but real story, this is something more correct. As for kids, it's absolutely different because they think that our world is not quite suitable for living and the right one, and because they are now living a little bit different reality, we have to understand that this revolution is already well underway, and it has been there for quite a while. We have to understand the potential and the technologies that we have, and the city. In the city, we are doing a lot in order to make this transformational process more convenient. We really want to turn it into just a mass product, a mass service that, of course, could represent a huge potential in terms of cost optimization and also in decreasing financial burden. I mean, just for example, 20% of patients they just don't go for the doctor because they cannot get in touch with the hospital. They just cannot call there. It's not possible to get to reach them, and they cannot just fix an appointment with a doctor. But technologies could really help us. We have a lot of innovations right now, and in our city we have a special dedicated group, even here within our community, that just travels around the world, trying to observe different innovations, different new strategies, technologies, in order to also try to apply it in our practice, in our country. It could also be said about medicine, not specifically, but also about medicine. I would like to reiterate once again that it's a really interesting initiative. So on one hand, we have a lot of challenges that we are exposed to right now because of those technologies, but at the same time it represents certain opportunities. Still, I'm a little bit skeptical about something that is happening right now around me. I am an IT programmer by profession. I am a specialist, but still I'm quite skeptical. What do I mean to say? I mean to say that there should be a certain balance between hype and between something that we mean when we say the word reality. And by the way, John, thank you very much for your presentation. It was really interesting, where you talked about for example, technologies like voice technologies. That is really interesting, and I try to share it with our consumers, with ordinary people. And when I do it with my colleagues, we have a lot of different aspects and nuances that we have to consider. And from this point of view, I'm quite skeptical because we understand that there are a lot of tricky points and a lot of challenges. I would like to appeal to our medical specialists. You have to understand that figures that we are talking about, all those devices and technologies, this is something inevitable. Anastasia today talked about the fact that we need to change a little bit our mentality, our culture, and just to accept. We have already understandable practices and understandable cases that are absolutely, again, understandable for us. I am talking also about voice technologies. And at the same time, there is a big number of things, I mean, voluminous tasks that we still cannot fully grasp. Stenography, for example, or for example, I mean, some notes that doctors take, I mean, X-ray specialists, radiologists, yes, those technologies are already helping them. They are working as assistants. And one of our colleagues also said that we should say that it's just an additional interface, a source of communication, a special niche that was played out perfectly well. It's not a substitution, it's just an additional interface, communication interface between machine and a human being. But it does not necessarily mean, again, that was mentioned by our colleagues, that every person, including me, would still prefer to talk to a real human being. Still, I belong to that part of people. Yes, I also try to reach different banks and other establishments, and I find it a little bit inconvenient to talk to a robot, and inevitably, instinctively, I wanted to be then connected to a real human being specialist. We are not quite there yet. We are at the very beginning, and of course, I still feel this lack of comfort, some kind of inconvenience when I have to interact with a robot. And of course, it would be nice to bring it to a lower level. But so far, right now, today, we cannot do it. We will be doing it steadily. For example, a very simple case. For example, a person mentally has this skill to listen and to stop without any delays. When the second speaker starts to say something, yes, so we stop talking when hears that somebody else is talking. I'm talking about a real situation. It's just an ordinary communication, a real conversation, dialogue. But so far, a robot cannot do that. At least those robots that we have seen, they cannot do that. So there is a technological delay, maybe just a millisecond, but still we have this delays, and it causes a certain inconvenience for us in terms of communication. As for a medical application, that's, for example, it was mentioned that let's, for example, try that doctors can dictate something instead of writing something and use handwriting. Well, this is quite a disputable issue. We will see how it will work. But anyway, within the forthcoming months, we are going to give it a try, and we will see these technologies, I think, in our city hospitals very soon, in our polyclinics. Again, it consists of all those little tricky issues, I think, that we all have to consider. For example, yes, me, just like my colleagues, we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where, okay, we very often criticize that now doctors, they look not at the patient but at the screen. But right now we could also be criticized for the fact that doctors will also be talking to a device or to a gadget instead of talking to a patient. Yes, we are quite criticized for that, and probably we will give it a try for now in those cabinets and those rooms where we doctors don't have any patients, just the pilot version. We natively got used to that, to some routines, and it's not easy to change it. But right now, it's like I said, is already being used, and it will be used not just by doctors but also nurses, and so on and so forth. We'll see how it works. I'm almost done with my speech. I just wanted to say one little aspect that can be used to characterize all those smart things. Yes, we can work with all those smart things, but only when there is a certain collaboration or synergy. One of the problems with, for example, voice recognition devices is that there should be a certain level of intelligence that could entitle the machine to maintain a really decent conversation. So this cooperation and also these teams of different startups, in order through this convergence and through different cooperation to achieve a more targeted solution, saturated with everything that the technologies can give us and offer today, just at least, for example, to maintain a conversation. This is, from my perspective, is an inevitable and a inevitable task and a must for the government. And the government already has all it takes to do that or to be engaged. This is a subject for another discussion, but still, I just want to say that Moscow is searching for the right instruments and the right formats in order order to fit all those technologies into all other systems and budgetary system, all those procurement systems, etc. And this is not an easy task. Plus transparency for collaboration of all those involved and interested parties, both for medical specialists and also startups and teams working in different domains. I would say that it takes a certain cooperation, and we as consumers, we need you as a comprehensive solution, but not you as just separate items. But as the main consumer, I mean, as this government state, we also have to offer you a platform, a forum, but not a physical one, just a virtual platform where this cooperation could be feasible on provision that we have this cooperation. Well, I'm glad that you are already succeeding, and some results have already been achieved. I have a question for you. You already have, yes, your internal team, you mentioned it, but also there are a lot of other external companies. So how do you strike this balance between something that you should do inside or outside, or how do you organize all that? Is there any special approach to that? Well, it's not quite relevant to our subject, but still I will answer that. The answer is very simple. We are representative of executive branch. We are not an IT company. We are not interested in boosting our capitalization. We are not searching ways to somehow create, I don't know, our own platform and to be presented to the market as an autonomous player producing something. That is why the basic answer is yes, we are interested and we want to enter the markets and do it on a more actively markets. But at the same time, we understand that we have to cater to millions of people and serve them, and also in critical sectors within this urban infrastructure. And from this point of view, we have to, and we will have to concentrate key knowledge regarding the system that we are creating within our structure inside, and so this is a very important thing. As for all those delicate things, that belongs to the market. When we start to work either with computer vision or voice technologies or anything of that kind, inevitably it could lead to a certain stagnation. We are not competitive from the very beginning. One of the problems that is not related to the subject itself, but the answer is very simple. One of the most unpleasant things in Moscow Electronic School is that the instrument that we are now using, and it exists, so the scenario of a lesson is just we try to create our own instrument and also ordering at the market. We are trying to compete with the biggest leading products like Microsoft, PowerPoint, like Apple instrument. I'm not quite familiar with that. Keynote, yeah, yes, I think that, yeah. So, which is stupid, well, really, because they have been doing that for 20 years in a targeted way. The same applied to voice technology. So they're trying to do something on their own, but by doing that, well, we're sure it's going to be a failure because it takes a certain experience to do that, experience in the different domains, it's still a driving force, and we are just so please raise your hands, those people who belong to such technological companies working with artificial intelligence and voice technologies. Well, and also, if this question could be interesting for you, okay, so then we will not gonna extrapolate on that anymore. So actually, I liked your comments, how you try to irritate robots while talking to it. I mean, all those bank robots. So you try to be transferred to a real person, and then you start to ask a robot tricky question in order to so to speak irritate it. But MTS created a very good robots. They're really proud of this robot, and they also try to, to have this kind of a conversation with the robot. But it is really smart. But we should say that their robot is not trivial at all, because it seems like they can discuss different things. But they're also thinking about more advanced things as well. Still, we have to understand that Moscow is a separate city, but MTS is presented within the whole territory of the Russian Federation. You have a very serious geography. Could you please say a few words about what you are doing, and not just with a focus on one city, but also talk about the scale of the whole country? Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. So if we talk about our scale, then I would say that the scale of just one country, it's not that much. It's not enough. If we talk about this collaboration between Boston Children's Hospital and Amazon, that is tremendous. Amazon is not just working for one country, and the key is just to make everybody satisfied, happy. I belong to those 5% who love to communicate with robots, and I actually prefer to talk to robots rather than to people, because I know that robots have precise, accurate information or don't have information at all, while human beings, they are not always competent in certain domains. So if we talk about this issue, I think that future still belongs to personalization. Just like Vladimir said, there is PowerPoint, and here we have Keynote, different things. There are people who work in Microsoft, and those who like to work with Apple, those people who prefer that kind of a service provided by the Department of Health of Moscow, and probably those who prefer to work with an alternative department of health in Moscow. So in future, everything that belongs the future will belong to personalization. Just before session, we talked to Cohen Kass, and he said that his father would love to hear a voice of an assistant, not just a standard voice, but his voice. Why? Because apparently voice is something that is close to you, that affects you at certain different levels. And we know that there is no actual sense behind plain text. This is just a key that tries to reach your consciousness. And in this sense, voice works perfectly well, because it works in two directions. On one hand, it goes through the audio channel, and also at the same time it creates a certain meaning. Or, for example, we could also say that voices can heal. Just imagine that. Do you have little kids? Perfect. And do you have more senior children? And do you know what it's like to take your kids for a blood test? Do you remember what it's like? Even if it happens like a year ago, they are not really willing to go for a blood test. It's really difficult. And imagine that they are lovely teddy bear, and for example, this teddy bear knows that next day the kid should go for a blood test. Then probably it could be used to tell a fairy tale before in the evening. A special fairy tale that could prepare a child for this kind of a blood test. And what about patients before operation in case of a very complicated diagnosis? It's all about voice technologies.
And that is truly medicine, even though from the point of view of formal medicine, it's not medicine. Whatever is related to the sphere of what is in English called wellness and well-being, so that is our condition, our understanding, and we know that it is of utmost importance for our health. This actually influences of how long we are going to live, of how we are going to live, the quality of our life. And of course here, voice assistants have huge potential. No, because on the one hand, they are going to assist a person from the moment of his birth till the very end, on the one hand. On the other hand, because our assistants will know everything about us. Just imagine, Alexei said that how he found his child's history, and imagine that every person has his history from the time of conception. And we discuss about digital duplicates, and imagine that the person will collect all the stories starting from the time that he was inside the uterus. And imagine how much easier it will be to diagnose such a person, how much easier it will be to collect some historical data. And it is not a matter of the day after tomorrow, but it's a matter of tomorrow and what's happening to us right today. And well, if we consider it from different dimension about voice technologies, what is going to be the application? We got used to the point that when you call a bank, a call center of a bank, then you hear that your conversation can be recorded for the sake of the quality of service control. Tell me please, do you want your communication with a doctor to be recorded for the purpose of control of quality? Well, I would like the doctor, as well as any clinical psychologist goes through supervision. I would like every doctor who has an appointment with a doctor would go through supervision as well, so that there would be a mechanism that could analyze in real time the content of this conversation. Maybe the doctor missed something, because anyway, every specific doctor can possibly treat some thousands of patients, but several thousands of people having trained several thousands of patients is much more objective story. So in this or that way, these technologies will come into our life. And leave aside Moscow. Moscow is of course in a very good condition. We have a very good life expectancy at a European level. The quality of life is quite high. Let's see further on outside Moscow, where we have no less Russian people who are now deprived of access to medicine of the quality that we have. What can we do with these people? Okay, we say telemedicine. We say like video flows to be transmitted with ultra high definition and so on and so forth. But let us understand that in our country we still have an infrastructural problem from the point of view of communication quality. Not in all the villages we have 4G networks, not even talking about 5G networks, which are going to come there much later. And in this situation, voice technologies are auxiliary means when we can transmit a picture of lower quality via existing internet channel, but via voice channel we would add some element of additional request online. So we would ask a person, a robot once again, they request either to change the view or add some other information. All these things are going to happen, and they will happen like tomorrow, everywhere. And I do hope that we will be capable of not only enjoying ourselves with the quality of life that we have, but we will be able to share that with other Russians. And from there we will get and bring some, we will remove digital inequality, and we will also implement some social equality, not from the point of view of allocate all the incomes equally, but from the point of view to provide access to what they do not have access. And that is how we view our activity, our future, and what we are going to perform in the nearest years. Nikolai, thank you very much. This is a huge company. That is why expectations from you are really high. We do want you to do something large scale. Telemedicine is something just to cover the whole country, for that to operate everywhere. Just to tell us, do you have some pilot secret tests. Well, kind of elaborations in the area of telemedicines are there, but still, when we cover the whole country, we should understand that coverage of the whole country can be done only by one body of executive power. And actually, I do hope that this body will not decide just to cover the whole country, because then an MTS company, as a private company, will have to go to the foreign assets. We know that Rostelecom is liked here, so I hope that it will not be the whole country. Of course, we create technological capability at the level of the whole country, but we do have interesting projects, interesting elaborations, and we would be happy to share those as much as they become public. Thank you for your last phrase. That was the key one. I know that a person who is arranging a conference and making an almanac, it's very hard to get information from big companies. What are you doing? What interesting things do you have? What's new? They never tell. It's very hard to work with the big companies, unfortunately. I understand. Well, shareholders, yes, okay, personal interest and private property. But happily, we do have a person who can look inside the future and who likes to look inside the future. This is Cohen.
To look into the future, as we cannot see what's happening in a big companies inside, they are not publicly too much discussing this. But I think that you have a good overview and makes up some vision of what will be next, what will be in a year, maybe in 10, and just make a mic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So can I have my slides, please? There's a lot of things already touched upon by the other speakers in an absolutely fantastic fashion. So what I would like to do is the following. I think this is the dream, to build a world in which you die young, but as late as possible, right? So what is it that you need to be accompanied from birth till the end of life, which is always with you trying to build that world? That's what we do. And we do that by looking to digital applications, trying to get the patient experience better, and removing friction after friction. That's how we look to the world. Digital and voice tech is one of these approaches, should remove friction after friction to make my patient's life better. Now, historically, if you ask users, why would you consider voice tech? Because, well, it's faster than typing, it's because I believe it's more accurate, or it's because I believe that it takes less time and it's better to capture things, what I really want to mention. And if I used the state of voice tech 2 years ago, I always use this slide. This is a slide which we use to identify a psychosis. And if people start to speak like in the left column, then something is wrong. But that's how voice tech looked like till a year and a half. It was, I ask, you answer, I ask, you answer. And it became more exciting when it became more fluent, like at the right side. And I guess you've all seen this ordering a haircut by Google Duplex, May 2018, I think, when we first started to believe that an interaction could become, well, more real. Now, just to make sure that people are aware, the majority of what Duplex shows is still humans calling haircutters. So it's not fully automated yet. But the key question I think you should ask, why should I call to a bot in the clinic, or to order in a restaurant, or to order a haircut? Why can my voice bot not talk with another voice bot and make the appointment and put it in my agenda? So yes, we can think about one-way communication, but in the future you might start to think about two-way communication, where all of a sudden I no longer need it. It happens in the back of my life, right? Now indeed, when we started to use these Amazon Alexas or Google Homes, I didn't start to use it to search and to ask. I gave this to my father, to tell him that it's time to take your medication at 5. And he found that cool, but didn't like it too much, because that Alexa Siri voice, it's not human, it's kind of a computer voice. So what we did, we scouted for a piece of technology which came out of Canada, Lyrebird. And this is really spectacular. use that tonight. You can speak to your computer for 2 minutes, and after 2 minutes, you can type whatever text which gets pronounced with your voice. And we combine that on the loudspeaker. And all of a sudden, my father, at 5 o'clock, hears me, Dad, it's time to take your medication. And all of a sudden, it becomes empathic. It becomes human, right? And that's the big need we have. Voice tech, sure, but make it human, right? And I think you heard already earlier about skills. The majority of people know that there is app stores, but hardly anyone knows that there is skill stores. And you can start to create skills for things for yourself. And it's only now that we start to see these things being adopted by pharma companies. This is one of the skill sets from a Japanese company, Eisai, which tells the entire story I will encounter as an epilepsy child, but in a super colorful, playful fashion. It's no longer the doctor who tells, it's a toy which tells, and step after step, I cannot take in everything. I want to get it sliced in pieces. And the interaction I have with this kind of device allows me, if I have a question, to go back and to get the landscape painted for what I'm going to encounter. So when companies like Apple came out with the voice version of ResearchKit, you could start to think about real applications. And I think you've seen the example of Nuance, where you can basically record while you speak what it is that you see from your patient, and the data are recorded in the patient dossier. This one is a cool one. This is what I use in my practice. This is Suki. And I don't have to hold something in my hands. I don't have to dictate any longer. I talk to my patient, 10 minutes FaceTime, and all the things I tell are recorded and automated automatically into the patient dossier. Which doctor do you like? The one who types 5 minutes on the screen, or the one which adapts new tech to the better, to become more human? Now, when we started to think about what the real applications of voice tech could be, we started to work together with one of the biggest pharmacy supply chain companies on the planet. The company is called McKesson in San Francisco. And to be honest, as a doctor, you know nothing about your patient, really nothing. And I think you don't have time to know a lot, but there is one party in the entire healthcare system which has a lot of time. That's the pharmacist. You don't have to make an appointment with a pharmacist, right? You do have to make an appointment with a doctor. A doctor on average has 10 minutes time for you. A pharmacist has, well, 20 minutes time, because the boxes he sells you can buy on the web. But he starts to have time to really start to educate and coach you. So we developed an app, How Are You?, which the pharmacist gave to his patients to start asking now and then, well, I gave you medication, how are you? And what we did, we dissected every single interaction between a patient and a pharmacist, which we can bring back to 26 flows. We made an NLP version of it, kind of a WhatsApp, and we made in parallel a voice version to see what it is that a patient is willing to communicate by typing, and where voice does better because it's faster or more convenient. The fascinating part came while we were doing this, where we got a company on board, a startup, which developed the following. If you open your smartphone, in the past you had to do it with typing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you did it with swiping, then you used biometrics, and now what you do, you look to your phone and open it. Do you know how much time people have patience before they want to communicate with the smartphone? You can tell from the slides, it's 1.6 seconds. That's the amount of time people want to spend before responding. In 1.6 seconds, I cannot ask you a question where you reply. In 1.6 seconds, we do not manage to have a voice interface. That's too short. But in 1.6 seconds, I can show you an emoticon. And basically, what we now have proven, people open the smartphone 60 times a day. That's normal. 60 times a day, we ask a question, but not with voice, with an emoticon. And currently, we can make better patient dossiers only built from emoticons than we built from voice or that we could do from text. And that's absolutely fascinating, because a patient might 50 times say, well, I don't want to reply, but 10 times he's willing to use one of these new emoticons. And this way, all of a sudden, we start to dissect how people are willing to communicate, right? Then we took it one step further. If you think about coaching, how do you want to get coached? I don't know whether you use Netflix, but Netflix allows you to program your favorite character out of your favorite Netflix series as a coach on your smartphone. And you can look already to the next episode of your favorite series if you first exercise properly. So we started to find out whether it's by voice or by image. And then the interesting part, that depending what you want to solve, people want to talk or not. This is Omada, the fastest growing company which uses digital medicine to change my eating behavior. And they tried to use avatars, voice. And people said, I don't want to speak to an avatar if I want to change my behavior, my eating behavior. So they couldn't scale but hire real people. While in contrast, if I have to talk about mental health, I'm depressed, I think about suicide, people don't want to do that with human beings. I don't even want to talk to my wife, telling her that I have sometimes, well, bad feelings. And for that reason, I need an avatar companion, like this one. You should download that tonight. Robot, it's called. And Robot is my personal psy. And he's interfering with me, but it doesn't work with voice. It only works because you don't have to tell your intimate details. You can only tell by typing. And that's how we started to look to the combination of voice, looking to emotions, with things like ambient audience of sounds, with basically the idea on how can we change behavior. And this is the last but one thing I'm going to tell. One of the biggest challenges we have with elderly people is that they forget to drink in time. So we made a patch which measures dehydration. Good? Not good enough. Because if I'm 85 years old, how can I interpret a patch which, well, I do have to interpret. So we made a little link via the internet between my TV and my patch. Being 85 years old, I watch quite a bit of TV. And now we use the TV to mention every 3 hours, Koen, it's time to drink. And all of a sudden, I change behavior by measuring something and having an interface in my real environment. So we started to use voice for the TV to tell me it's time to drink. And people didn't like that. And we started to play with bottles. We started to play with bottles like this. And we could make 3D printed screw caps. And in the screw cap was a little flag. And this is standing on my desk. I'm 88 years old, I'm living in a service home, and every few hours a flag comes out of the bottle telling me it's time to drink. Adding voice to that, that patient's loved big time. So I think one of the big developments we're going to see is that voice tech will no longer be in the cloud, but that we're going to see voice tech really as edge computing. That we're going to have bottles with screw caps which only have one way to interface with me, so there is no longer risk that all these data end up into a place where people fear that something goes wrong, but we start to play with, well, edge devices like TVs and bottles, which I can use in my complete life, entire life, so that we can start for the first time to think about digital companions, avatars of ourselves, which are trained by all the voice we ever used from birth till life, well, ends, so that we can start to think about having a companion like this one, which if you haven't seen it yet, you should download tonight. This is Big Hero 6. It's a movie about 5 friends which get to know a 6th big marshmallow inflatable doctor. And that doctor sometimes interacts with voice, sometimes interacts with emoticons, sometimes with text, but is, I think, the golden bullet we have to go back to very old China, where the doctor was paid to keep me healthy. And why was that? Because he was living amongst his villains. He was 24/7 with me, and he was interacting as a human being. So the big promise of the future is that voice tech, amongst one of the interfaces of many, will make healthcare way more human and bring basically the doctor in my home 24/7.
Thank you, Cohen. It was amazing. Thank you very much. And actually, I have a couple of questions, but we're running out of time, and we need to finish the session at 4 p.m. So maybe, do any of you guys have any questions to the panel? Maybe we'll have some 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Does anyone have a question? Есть у кого-нибудь вопросы?
Anybody has a question to panelists? Because we have to finish at 4. We have only a couple of minutes. Anybody has a question? Good afternoon. I would like to ask, do you have a practice of application of some digital voice technologies in private sector in medicine? Whom are you addressing, if I may? To everyone, to everyone. Well, in private clinics, I think more to Alexei. Well, we have a practice of application of voice technologies in private clinics. It is very similar to the case that we're implementing in Moscow, but we're not speaking about a mass consumption. It's not that all the doctors use it in the clinics. Separate clinics has X-ray diagnosis or ultrasonic diagnosis. They have such an opportunity, or automatic calling function is provided for clinics. But can I ask, why are you interested in private clinics? Do you see some difference between using voice technologies in public and private sector? Well, actually, I keep track.
So, in fact, I have been keeping a very close eye on your product range for quite a while, and probably you could just share some examples and give some feedback from you, share feedback from private sector and what is in great demand right now, because you specified 2 main directions: stenography for communication, and also you for making calls. Maybe the market is asking for some other products as well, based on voice technologies. Alexei, you have already answered, yes? Haven't you? Well, in fact, there are a number of situations where you could use voice technologies, but I today wanted to talk about the practical side of it. If you want to, we can discuss it on the margins of our conference. Because otherwise, yes, I mean, it's still a fantasy, but we can discuss it later. Colleagues, thank you very much for such an interesting session. It's 4 sharp, and in case you want to find out more about the subject that we discussed, you can check out our journal and have a special QR code here. You can download it here as to how it is applied here.
Give them a big applause. Пожалуйста, прошу поаплодировать нашим спикерам. Спасибо огромное всем.